Do you remember being a child, having a Yu-Gi-Oh duel and playing with made up bullshit rules? Well, now you can relive the exact same bullshit, but this time you will play by the official rules, thanks to Konami and their release of the Yu-Gi-Oh online simulator Master Duel. But before we get into the essence of this simulator, first we have to explain the rules of Yu-Gi-Oh! For the unfortunate ones that never got to enjoy it or the NPC kids that prefer to play sports. Yu-Gi-Oh! Is a trading card game that was launched by Konami in 1999 in Japan and March of 2002 in North America. It is based on the fictional game of duel monsters created by manga artist Kazuki Takahashi, which appears in the manga franchise Yu-Gi-Oh! And is the central plot device throughout its various anime adaptation and spin-off series. The goal of the game is to defeat your opponent. This can happen by either reducing their life points from 8000 to 0 if you are a good human being, or if you are a scum of the earth, this can happen by taking him out, or an alternative win condition caused by card effects. But before we get into all of that, we first have to explain the field on which the game is played, and the way turn phases work, so when I start explaining the different card types, it all makes sense. So first is the main deck. Main deck is placed here face down, and can consist of 40 to 60 cards, 60 if you are a degenerate. Normal, effect, ritual and pendulum monsters can be stored here. Spell and trap cards are also stored there. If nothing of that makes sense for now, please bear with me as the game is super complicated. It will all make sense once I explain the different card types. Extra deck. The extra deck is placed here face down, if they have one, and may have between 0 to 15 cards consisting of fusion, synchro, XYZ and link monster cards. Pendulum monsters are also placed here face up, when they would otherwise be sent from the field to the graveyard. Graveyard, a zone where cards are sent to when they are discarded or destroyed, like monsters that have been tributed or destroyed, or most spell and trap cards after they have been activated. Main monster zone, a field of 5 spaces where monster cards are placed when successfully summoned. Extra monster zone, introduced with link monsters. This is a zone where monsters from the extra deck can be summoned. An extra monster zone is not a part of either player's field until they summon a monster to the extra monster zone, meaning they're shared between the players. Spell and trap zones. 5 spaces in which either spell or trap cards can be placed. The leftmost and rightmost spell trap zones can optionally be treated as pendulum zones by placing pendulum monsters there, allowing players to use pendulum effects and perform pendulum summons. Field zone, a zone where field spells are placed. And lastly, banishment, a zone where cards that are banished by card effects are sent. Now, to go into the 6 phases that usually happen on each turn, first is the draw phase. This is the turn a player draws one card from their deck. It is skipped on the first turn. Standby phase. No specific action occurs, but it exists for card effects and maintenance costs that activate or resolve during the specific phase. Main phase 1. The turn players may normal summon or set a monster, activate cards and effects that they control, change the battle position of a monster, if it was not summoned this turn, and set spell or trap cards face down. Battle phase. The turn players may choose to attack their opponent, using any monsters on their field in attack position. The battle phase is only existent after the first turn. Main phase 2. The player may do all the same actions that are available during main phase 1, though they cannot repeat certain actions already taken in main phase 1, such as normal summoning or change the battle position of a monster that has already been summoned, attacked or had their battle position changed during the same turn. This phase is only accessible if the battle phase was entered, so on turn 1 there is no main phase 2. And finally, end phase. The players declare the end of their turn. Certain card effects and maintenance costs may activate or resolve during this specific phase. Earlier we mentioned that a win condition is reducing your opponent's life points to 0. One such way to achieve that is by using monster cards, as all monster cards have an attack score, and when you attack with them successfully, a lower attack monster, or manage to land a direct strike on your opponent, you take part of their life points away. Doing this successfully will result in you reducing the life points of your opponents to 0 and winning the duel. So monster cards are a core part of the game. There are several different types of monster cards, and when we look at them, they have different elements to them. All monsters have a type. In total there are 26 different types. For example, the Blue Eyes White Dragon is a dragon type monster. All monsters also have an attribute. There are 7 official different monster attributes: Dark, Divine, Earth, Fire, White, Water and Wind. If we look at the Blue Eyes White Dragon, we see that it is a white type monster. Most monsters also can possess a level. A monster that is in between level 1 and 4 can usually be normal summoned or normal set with no restriction. Summoning a monster usually happens during main phase 1 and 2, though some can be summoned during other phases if the right conditions are met, such as Tempai Dragon Chunra. Normal summoning is an action that is usually taken from a player's hand and allows one to place monster in face up attack position, or you can normal set a monster in face out defense position. Each player is allowed a single normal summon or set per turn unless uses an effect that allows him to do more than one. Normal set monsters are flipped face up in defense position when attacked. This is counted as flip summon. Flip summoning is when a monster that was in face down defense position is turned face up. This can be done by either the player manually changing its position into an attack after a single turn has passed, as he can do with any other monster after a turn has passed from its summon, or by the other player attacking it and forcing the other player to flip it up. Some other monsters have an effect when they're flipped, such as the card Man-Eater bug that destroys a monster when flipped. Every other mechanic that summons in some way can be generalized under the term special summon. Monsters that are between level 5 and 6 usually require a single monster tribute to be normal summoned. A great example of such a monster is Summoned Skull. And finally, monsters that are level 7 and above require 2 tributes to be normal summoned, unless it is specified in the monster text that it requires more than 2. So, a monster like the Blue-Eyes White Dragon would require 2 tributes to be brought out, but a monster like Obelisk the Tormentor would require 3, because of Obelisk's effect, even though by the standard rules they should both require only 2. Alternatively, monsters can have a rank or link rating, but we'll get into that later on. Every single monster possesses an attack score. The Blue-Eyes White Dragon has an attack score of 3000, making it the highest of all normal monsters. When a monster is summoned in face-up attack position, it can attack the enemy directly and deal damage, or it can attack an enemy monster and also deal the difference between his attack and the enemy monster attack as a damage to the opponent. If the attack is successful, it usually results in the destruction of the enemy monsters. If both monsters have an equal attack score, they both destroy each other, unless there are some other effects at play. For example, Elemental Hero Phoenix Enforcer can be destroyed by battle, so these rules won't apply to him. If a monster with a lower attack is commanded to battle another one with a higher attack by its controller, it will usually result in its destruction, even though it is the aggressor of that attack. Okay. And finally, all monsters except Link monsters possess a defense score. The Blue-Eyes White Dragon possesses a defense score of 2500 defense. When monsters are summoned horizontally by a normal set or a special summon in face-up defense position when battling, the importance score changes from the attack one to the defense one. A monster with a higher defense will successfully fend off an attack against a monster with a lower attack, but unlike combat between monsters in attack position, it will not result in the attacking monster destruction, but its owner will still receive the difference between their attacks as a loss of his life points, unless there is some exception to that rule, such as the Duel cards. When a defense position monster battles a monster with a higher attack, it will usually result in its destruction, but the owner of that monster won't receive the difference between defense and attack unless the attacking monster possesses piercing effect. An example of such monster is one of my favorite cards, Ancient Gear Golem.
GG! Easy! Easy!
Defense position monsters can declare an attack. Now, of course, as with almost everything in this game, there are exceptions, such as the monster card Kashtira Scarecrow. By the way, we're still not done with monster cards, as they can be further subdivided into normal monsters, effect monsters, ritual monsters, fusion monsters, synchro monsters, XYZ monsters, pendulum monsters, link monsters, and monster tokens, each with a distinctive card frame to differentiate them. Normal monsters that are yellow colored are monsters with no effect of its own, instead simply having a description of that monster. For example, Dark Magician description states, the ultimate sigma in terms of attack and defense. I meant wizard. They are stored in the main deck and can also be normal, tributed, or special summoned. Due to their lack of an effect, they are rarely played in modern competitive game unless there is an archetype, a series of thematically related cards that support each other, basically, that centers on a particular normal monster. An example would be the Dark Magician archetype. Effect monsters that are orange are monsters that possess at least one effect. They can possess a plethora of powerful effects such as monster destruction, card removal, which is different than destruction, and can circumvent cards protected against destruction. Or they can have effects that straight up protect them from powerful effects like immunities to other card effects. For a monster effect to be activated, its condition must be met, and it usually must resolve successfully, unless we're talking about lingering effects that are attached to the card as a whole, such as the card Majesty Fiend that prevents players from activating monster effects. Some of them can be summoned in the same manner as normal monsters. Fusion, Ritual, Synchro, XYZ, Pendulum, and Link monsters can also be effect monsters. Effect monsters can also be further subdivided into Spirit monsters, Toon monsters, Union monsters, Gemini monsters, and Flip monsters. Spirit monsters are effect monsters with the ability Spirit. Each of this type of monsters has an effect that returns it to its owner hand during the end phase of the turn it is normal summoned, or flip face up. An example of such a card is Yatagarasu that created the infamous Yatagarasu Walk with a toxic effect that states: during the end phase of the turn, this card was normal summoned or flip face up returned to the hand. If this card inflicts battle damage to your opponent, skip the draw phase of their next turn. Toon monsters having some reliance on the card Toon World. The unique thing about Toons is that they can attack the opponent directly if you control the spell card Toon World and your opponent controls no Toon monsters. Union monsters are effect monsters with a Union ability. Each Union monster has an effect that allows it to equip itself to a monster as an equipped spell card, or unequip itself to special summon itself to a monster zone. When equipped to each other, they usually grant a monster effect to the equipped monster. The card AA Suit Core is such a card. Its effect states: once per turn you can either target one white machine monster you control, equip this card to that target, or unequip this card and special summon it. A monster equipped to this card is unaffected by your opponent's monster effects, except its own. Also, if the equipped monster would be destroyed by battle or card effects, destroy this card instead. If this card is sent from the field to the graveyard, you can add one other Union monster from your graveyard to your hand. Gemini monsters are effect monsters with a Gemini ability. They are treated as normal monsters on the field and in the graveyard, and can gain their effect by performing an additional normal summon on them while they are face up on the field. Flip are effect monsters with the ability Flip, aka turn face up on the field and trigger an effect. With the exception of Deus Ex Crawler, they all have a flip effect. Although they may also have other effects in addition to their flip effect. We already mentioned them earlier when talking about the effects of Man-Eater Bug. Ritual that are book colored, stored in the main deck. These monsters can only be special summoned by using a ritual spell card, and tributing required monsters listed in its instruction that meet the ritual monster's level or is greater than its level. The most popular ritual monster is currently Skull Guardian, Protector of the Voiceless Voice. Fusion that are purple colored, stored in the extra deck. These monsters are summoned by utilizing cards with fusion effects such as the spell polymerization and using monsters listed in the monster description. Another mechanic fusion monster possesses is the ability to fusion summon without a spell card. They are instead summoned by following the requirement for the monster material written on the card. The most popular fusion monster is currently the Red Ice Dragoon. Synchro that are white colored, stored in the extra deck. These monsters are summoned by using from the field a tuner type monster and one or more non-tuner type monsters whose levels equals to the level of the synchro monster being summoned. The most popular tuner monster is Baron de Fleur. Tuner monsters, which are subtype of effect monsters, are monsters with tuner listed on the type ability line. They are required for the synchro summon of a synchro monster. Normal, ritual, fusion, effect, pendulum, and synchro monsters themselves can all be tuner monsters, although some card effects can treat non-tuner monsters as tuners. Flip and union monsters and special summon monsters can also be tuner monsters. XYZ that are black colored, stored in the extra deck. These monsters possess ranks as opposed to levels, and require 2 or more monsters whose level is the same as the XYZ monster rank. These monsters become the XYZ monsters overlay units, which can then be sent to the graveyard by detaching them to activate effects. Besides the usual XYZ summon, some monsters can be summoned by using rank down magic spell card, which summons an XYZ monster of a higher or lower rank than the one that was used, or by their effect, bypassing the usual summoning requirements. The most popular XYZ monster currently is Superstar Slayer Typhon Sky Crisis, and yes, it is necessary to have such an edgy name. Pendulum, that are green gradient colored, are variations of other monster subtypes. If sent from the field to the graveyard, are placed face up in the extra deck instead. Pendulum monsters can be placed in the pendulum zones in the leftmost and rightmost spell and trap zones, where they can utilize pendulum effects. When both pendulum zones contain pendulum monsters with different valued pendulum scales, players can perform a pendulum summon during the main phase to summon multiple monsters from the hand or face a pendulum monster from the extra deck, whose levels swipe between the two pendulum scale values. I have no idea which is the most popular pendulum monster. The archetype is more or so dead, since main and special need folks enjoy them. Link monsters that are dark blue colored, they are stored in the extra deck. Link monsters have link values instead of levels and can only be played in attack position. These are summoned by using one or more monsters on the field as link materials that meets the summon requirements, with link monsters able to be used as multiple link materials depending on its link value. The link monsters feature arrows which, when pointed towards other zones on the field, allows additional link monsters to be summoned outside of the extra monster zone, to the zones those link monsters point to. Link monsters may also possess effects that can be used when another card is co-linked. The most popular link card currently is SP Little Knight. Tokens that are grey colored. I'm tired of saying colored. They are monsters that can only be summoned through card effects. These cards do not exist outside of the field and are removed from play upon leaving. Probably the most popular token monster currently is the Adventure token. As you might have noticed if you paid attention to the card effects of the cards I listed while explaining the different monster archetypes, most of them have a quick effect, which are effects that can be activated during both players' turn in response to a card effect. That's one of the reasons these cards are so popular, as that's pretty broken and unfair. Some of my personal favorite cards are Elemental Hero Wildheart. No, Didi. Dingirsu the Orcus Knight and Eldritch the Golden Ward. Now, monster cards are a pretty big part of the game, but they are also spell and trap cards. Spell cards that are green colored are magical spells with a variety of effects, such as reviving destroyed monsters that can be played from the hand during the player's turn, or placed face down for activation on a later turn. There are 6 types of spell cards. Normal spells that can only be activated during the player's main phase, like the very fair card Triple Tactics Talents that allows you to choose one of 3 broken effects.
Oh, DD! Oh, what it is? Oh, DD!
Quick play spells that can be activated from the hand at any time during the player's turn, or can be set and activated during an opponent's turn. However, they cannot be activated the turn they are set. Called by the Grave that banishes a monster card from the graveyard and negates its effects is a great example of that. Continuous spells with a continuous effect that remain until the conditions are met or it is destroyed, such as the very balanced spell Nightmare Pain that makes you take damage your opponent would have taken from Yubel monsters. I really fucking hate Yubel! Equip spells that is equipped to a monster, providing it with support effects. It is removed if the monster leaves the field or is set face down, or the card is destroyed. The Mikanko cards are a good example of such spells. Field spells that are placed in a player's field spell zone, which affect the entire field. Each player can only have one field spell in a play at a time. A good example of that is the field spell Walls of the Imperial Tomb that enables you to summon Horus monsters and is a great searcher. Ritual spells that are required to summon ritual monsters. For example, the card Prayers of the Voiceless Voice allows you to ritual summon Skull Guardian, Protector of the Voiceless Voice. And finally, the last type of cards are trap cards. Trap cards are dark pink and have to be set on a player's field, face down, and can only be activated after the turn they were set has passed, including the opponent's turn. They are generally used to stop or counter the opponent's moves. Traps can be set during main phase 1 and main phase 2, and depending on the type of trap activated during any phase of the turn. They come in 3 varieties. Normal, a standard trap that is discarded once its effect resolves. A really disgusting and grossly overpowered trap card is Simultaneous Equation Cannon. It can banish the whole field of the opponent's player, but a complicated predisposition have to be met for it to activate. Continuous. A trap that remains on the field until destroyed or its conditions are met. A really strong trap of this kind is Skill Drain, which negates the effect of all monsters on the field. Counter, a trap that is activated in response to the activation of other cards. A classic counter trap is Solemn Judgment that negates trap, spell cards and also prevents monsters from being summoned. But it has a hefty price of half your life points.
You're going to Brazil!
cards come in a different accessibility. The standard rule is that a player can't run more than 3 copies of a card in their deck, but sometimes cards can be semi-limited to 2, limited to 1, or outright banned if they're too strong. Now that we know all the different types of cards that exist, we have to look at the mechanic of chains, which is a core part of Yu-Gi-Oh! A chain is a stack of card effects activated one after the other. It exists for the management of multiple card effects. A chain is created when the effects of one or more cards are activated at the same time, or when a player activates an effect after a card is played. But before the card impacts the game, if the effect of a card is activated, the opponent always has the possibility to reply with an effect of their own card. If the opponent replies with an effect, the player can choose to reply back and add another effect to the chain. If the opponent chooses not to reply, the player can add a second effect and create a chain from the activation of their own card. Mandatory effects must be activated before or at the start of the chain, or right after the chain resolves. Each player can then continue to add effects to the chain. The chain ends when the players wish to not play any more cards. Should this happen, the chain is resolved. The resolution is performed in reverse order of a play, starting with the effect of the most recently played card. Now there are some exceptions to this rule. For example, when a card effect is activated and you have another card that has a condition for activating that is met at the exact same time, you can chain link both of those cards and block your opponent from activating interruption for the first effect during the chain. That way you can ensure that the first crucial effect can be negated by your opponent's counterplay. A deck that excels at chain blocking is Fwandaris, as their monster effects trigger from the banishment zone when you summon a winged beast monster. Earlier we mentioned that there are several ways to win a duel of Yu-Gi-Oh, starting that one of them is reducing the opponent's life points to 0 by attacking with monsters. This is by far the most popular option, but there are other alternatives. The most famous alternative win condition is getting the 5 pieces of Exodia in your hand. As you did in the anime against Kaiba, they even added an animation in the game when you achieve that. Another way to get a victory is by taking him out. One way this can happen is by using the effects of the runic cards that banish opponent cards from their deck. After all, if you can't draw a card, you lose the game. Another way is to reduce your opponent's life points to 0 by using burn effects from cards. There is a strategy like that called Nurse Burn, which involves playing the card Dark World Nurse Refugio. It has the ability to make any effect that would have your opponents gain life points inflict the same amount of damage to them instead. So if you fill your deck with cards like the Trap Gift card, it can be pretty devastating. Now there are also monster cards that have win conditions, which don't require you to collect 5 pieces, such as Huakti, the Creator of White, which must be special summoned from your hand by tributing 3 monsters whose original names are Swifer the Sky Dragon, Obelisk the Tormentor, and the Winged Dragon of Ra. This card's special summon cannot be negated. The player that special summons this card wins the duel. The main thing all of the strategies leading to victory have in common is that they try to achieve it by either chain of effects that set the right conditions for the win, this is called a combo, or alternatively by controlling the duel and slowing the game down enough for you to win by outgrinding your opponent, this is called a control play style. Now, before we get into some of the more popular decks and strategies that can get you to win the game, let us first look at the simulator itself. When we first opened Master Duel, we were greeted by an inspiring piece of music and epic illustration. This all gives you the false sense that you're about to have fun. Starting from top to bottom, after we enter the game, first we have the player's profile. In the top left, there you can change your name, icon, icon frame, title, mate and wallpaper. These are all cosmetics that don't affect the game itself. Next we have the replay button. This is where you can see your previous saved games. Then the data page, which gives you information connected to the game experience you've had. And finally the proficiency test. This one is a waste of time quiz that Konami decided to put in the game for some reason. It is in their style, to be honest. After that we have the gem selection. If we click on it, we can buy gems for absurd prices, but fear not, the game is generous enough and gives you a good amount of free gems, so you will probably never have to buy gems, unless you are a degenerate YouTuber or a person with too much money for their own good. The Duel Pass, next to the gem shop, is basically a battle pass that you farm with points that you acquire by playing games. It is pretty worth for the 700 gems you pay for it. In the upper corner there are also the notification, gift box, Duel Live menu, where you can watch Duel's Live, Friends and submenu section. I won't go into detail about them since they're self-explanatory. Next we have the Duel menu. This is where you can do ranked duels and acquire the highest rank of Master 1 and eventually climb the ladder. Now I myself am currently Master 4 because I got sick of playing. I started pretty low ranked this season. Okay, it's not a skill issue, I'm just tired. In the ranked duel menu can also be found a place for replays and the top 10 players, also known as the place you end up if you're a complete no-wipe degenerate. Here you can also play duel events with unique rules, if there are any, that is. Enjoy team battles in custom duel rooms if you have friends, that is. And play casual with the same people that try to learn their new deck and forfeit the game when they mess up. Next is the deck menu. This is where you can build either something fun that will never allow you to climb or some degenerate meta strategy that will suck out your soul right from playing the same pattern over and over again. The search menu for the card is pretty detailed, to be honest, but for some reason sometimes when you search for a specific card it gives you a lot of results, making it frustrating to search through all of them just to find the correct card. It is also nice to be able to choose different cosmetics for each deck from the menu, like the field on which the game is played or your mate. It is pretty nice of Konami to make both of those interactable. There is also the auto build option that can build a deck for you, and it is surprisingly good. It can definitely cook. Just give it a few cards if you want something specific or let it build from scratch. Either way it works pretty good. If you're that dense and you can't copy a good deck from the internet, don't worry, Konami has your back. You can just copy one of the many public decks. Good luck with them though. After you have built your masterpiece, you can now even test it by sampling a card draw. This feature is pretty amazing. It is a good indicator of how consistent your deck is. Next is the solo menu. No same person enjoys it. That is there only for you when you start the game to complete the missions and receive gems or try some junky deck you have built against the NPCs. If you are not silver, that is. Recently they added an animation cutscene to the solo mode based on the Sky Striker archetype, which is pretty good, so I guess the solo mode has one more use than before. Finally we have the shop section. Here you can spend your precious gems on cosmetics and cards, though I will only recommend doing so on the water as gems are precious. A good advice I can give you is to buy the bundle deals, as they can give you 10 packs for 750 gems and ultra rare card. Normally 10 packs cost 1000 gems. Also it is generally advised to never buy normal packs as their drop rates are too random. Instead buy dedicated packs that can give you better chances for the cards you are aiming. By now you have understood that the game operates on a gacha base, unfortunately, which means to acquire a card you need to buy packs and either hope to get a card or to dismantle 3 cards of the same rarity and build a new one. Now there are of course cards of higher value that look shinier, such as glossy finish and raw finish that grant you an additional 10 and 20 points when you dismantle. These versions are randomly acquired from drops and crafting. There are different types of rarities in Master Duel, each being more valuable than the previous. We have normal, rare, super rare and ultra rare cards. The only currency you will ever have a problem with acquiring is the ultra rare cards, as they are required in building a lot of decks, even though the game is pretty generous since gems can be collected from multiple sources. And finally, from all the important menus, lastly we have the mission menu. Here you can complete missions that can get you a pretty good amount of gems, especially at the start of the game. A nice feature of the simulator is also the monster animations it has. When they are summoned, it definitely looks more exciting than the physical game.
Going first, quite already of course, but positive start for.
Oh my god, bro.
Oh, hell no, man. What the fuck, man? Get your ass on, boy. You get your goddamn.
Happy feet. One more combo. That ain't Falco. That ain't Falco.
before we take a look at some of the meta and popular decks you can build using those precious gems, I really want to talk about the music in this game since it's amazing for some reason. I have no idea why a card game simulator needs such a good music, but just take a listen to a few of the tracks. They're all fairly unique, but the main thing they have in common is that they're all epic. Now, to talk about some of the decks you can play, the most powerful deck in the game right now is Snake Eyes Fiendsmith. It's a combo deck that is reliant on summoning from the graveyard and has a pretty strong grind game thanks to the recycling it's capable of. It can play through a decent amount of your opponent's negates on turn 1. There are no apparent weakness to this deck, which is what makes it pretty strong. It can also deal well with board breakers. Board breakers are cards designed to deal with your opponent's cards after he finishes the turn. Also, the deck can lose to lingering effects like Xanathon, the Sky Prison, which can block players from summoning monsters from the graveyard. That is if the monster effect resolves successfully. Next we have Branded. Branded is more of a grind deck and is usually played with 60 cards, making it quite annoying to deal with as it keeps on fusion summoning a lot thanks to all the resources in the deck, and it can build pretty disgusting boards under the right conditions. It's also pretty hard to grasp as there are a ton of lines that you can commit into. There is literally a 20-hour guide on YouTube dedicated to playing Branded. As with any meta deck, it can play through several disruptions. One of its main weaknesses used to be board breakers, but since the card White and Darkness Dragon Ward was added to the game, that's greatly diminished. Another weakness of Branded is their dependability on the spell card Branded Fusion. If you can banish it, it will really hurt them as the card is limited to a single copy. After Branded we have Duel, which is a combo deck with the gimmick of summoning indestructible by battle monsters with 0 attack that make your opponent take damage when attacked instead of you. It's a combo deck with a good grind game, and its main win condition is the card Nightmare Pain that makes you take damage your opponent would have taken from battle with Duel monsters, and additionally it forces you to attack Duel monsters during the battle phase, whether you like it or not. And again, as with any meta deck, it can play through several disruptions turn 1. The main weakness of the deck used to be board breakers, but after the addition of Varudras, the final brinker of the end times, and the Fiendsmith cards, this weakness isn't that relevant. Then we have Voiceless Voice, which is a mid-range grind deck that is annoying to deal with, especially with the right opening hand. The main card that the deck plays around is Woe, the player of the Voiceless Voice. Depending on starting hand, it can play through several disruptions as well, but sometimes it can lose to a single well-timed disruption. Most board breakers won't work against that deck, as it always has a disruption prepared for one of them, unless you have more than one, or an unanswerable board breaker. It's unlikely to work. The current trendy combo heavy deck is Dryton. It can set up pretty strong end boards and even some cards that prevent your opponent from playing the game, such as Vanity Fiend that they can search and play as Drytons, usually not normal summon, and flood the board with a lot of monsters. And once again, unless you have the right disruption, this deck has no weakness. Another interesting deck is the Wyvern's archetype, which is probably one of the few viable control decks currently. And under the right circumstances, it has the best grind game of all decks. I can't tell you why this deck is so popular, but for some reason, it never falls off people's radar. There has to be some reason for this phenomena, but who knows? Now, the main win condition of this deck is its great grind game and utilization of trap cards such as Destructive Daruma Karma Cannon and Simultaneous Equation Cannon. Through the effects of the Labyrinth archetype, they can keep on flooding their board with more and more traps until your opponent eventually runs out of resources. The main weakness of the deck is that it runs a single copy of Lovely Lady Labyrinth, so if you banish her, you will likely win the duel. Finally, the two most disgusting meta decks that I want to talk about. First, we start with Tempire, which is a deck designed to end the game in a single turn by attacking you on the second turn of the duel. What makes it so disgusting is how consistent it is, as it needs only a single starter to do its full combo, so they can play a ton of utility cards to either prevent you to build a board or just break it, and thanks to their field spell, signing and summoning, they are protected against many card effects and can dish out a ton of damage in a single turn. Thanks to cards like Trident Dragon that can attack 3 times, and when buffed by the effects of the field spell the deck utilizes, its attack goes up to 6000. Now thankfully Konami noticed how unfair this is, and the deck is currently a lot weaker and less consistent, but for a while it was pure torture to play against. The main weakness of the deck is and always will be cards that prevent the players from playing the game, also known as floodgates, cards like Skill Drain, Power Sing Stone, and there can only be one. And the most disgusting meta deck, Gimmick Puppet. Now this deck main win condition is to literally end the game on the first turn, with its monster effects that deal burn damage to the opponent. So yes, unless you have a card that prevents that from happening in your hand, or you win the coin flip and go first, you will likely lose the game. Not to mention they also have a field spell, Mansion of the Dreadful Dolls, that protects them from monster interruptions. It is very non-interactive deck and it boils down to playing solitaire, so I have no idea why Konami thought this is a good idea, which is a shame since the archetype has an amazing and unique aesthetic. Some of my favorite decks include the Brick Tier archetype, Kashtira, and Fuandaris. So the Kashtira archetype is one that focuses on bringing out its boss monster, Kashtira Ariseheart, who makes cards go to the banishment zone instead of the graveyard, winning the game through its strong lingering effect and the grind game the deck can produce with cards like Kashtira Shangri-Ira, Kashtira Bird, and Kashtira Preparations. It is one of the simplest decks one can play and one of the most hated since it directly strips your opponents from resources by using monsters like Kashtira Fenrir and Kashtira Unicorn. It has a pretty big weakness though, as it can easily die to a single interruption or a single board breaker. Wanderers is a deck that focuses on outgrinding your opponent through normal summoning, unlike most decks that focus on special summoning. One of its boss monsters, Wanderers in Empen, is the ultimate nightmare for any deck dependent on link monster, as it negates the effects of special summoned monsters in attack position. The deck also utilizes cards like Apex Aven and Rise of the Mega Monarch, as they fit perfectly into the Winged Beast archetype and help the deck with its disruptions. The core part of the Wanderers cards is the ability to go to the banishment zone instead of the graveyard when they leave the field, as they have an effect that allows them to return from the banishment zone to your hand when you summon another winged beast through their effect. This effect activates instantly when you summon a winged beast, so you can use it to chain block your opponent from his disruptions and to fill your hand with a lot of cards, so your grind game overwhelms him. The main weakness of the deck is that it can be vulnerable to disruptions if they open only a starter with no additional support and can also die to a single board breaker. And finally, the deck that I decided to climb with the previous season, my personal favorite abomination, the Kashtira Horuston. It's a deck that utilizes the ability of this card to play under floodgates like Power Sink Stone, Tyrant's Tirade, Summon Limit, Skill Drain, and others that prevent your opponent from playing the game with their oppressive effects that boil down to you can't summon monsters or you can't use their effects. The Horus and Kashtira cards, when set up properly, have no such problem and can be recycled infinitely thanks to cards like Kashtira Bird and King Sarcophagus. It's a very simple and straightforward deck that basically returns both players into old school Yu-Gi-Oh! And that's why I really like it. Unlike other decks, there is no need to play solitaire. Main weakness of the deck is that it can die to a single disruption, especially if you open a bad hand, and some board breakers like Evenly Match can really mess you up, and it tends to be a bit bricky, but overall if I made it to Master 4 you can probably climb to Master 1. Here is my deck list, if any of you are interested in terrorizing the ladder with it. Okay guys, this is the deck I wanted to show you. It's a deck I would not recommend anyone playing this current meta, but it got me to Master 4, so yeah, that's the last season masterpiece that I managed to build. As you can see, it has a very original name. So first we start with the Draw and Walk Bird. Draw and Walk Bird, you basically discard it when your opponent adds a card from their deck to their hand and they can't add any more cards. It's a really strong card. In this meta everybody should play it. Then we have Maxi, a disgusting card, you discard it and when your opponent special summons someone you draw a card, still pretty disgusting. Then we have Rice Heart. Rice Heart is there so that it can be added by Fenrir. It's basically another free body, not only it's the free body, but it can also be used for level 7x with a 7. So yeah, everybody should play it if you're gonna run the Kashtira package, especially if you want to do a Kashtira full combo, you can't do it without Rice Heart. Then we have Fenrir. Fenrir is a really strong card. It's a board breaker. Not only is it a board breaker, it's a big body, and its effect is that when it attacks, you can banish one card on the field, or when your opponent triggers a monster effect, you can also banish one card on the field. Then we have Unicorn. Unicorn is also a really strong card. It's basically the Kashtira combo starter. Not only is the Kashtira combo starter, you can use it to add a card like Kashtira Bird in your hand, which can help you with the grind game, and it can also rip one card from your opponent extra deck, so that can really mess up their combo line if they play a card that's limited to one. Like let's say you play versus Tier Elements and you rip out a Kid Chaos, it's game over. Then we have Lava Golem. Lava Golem is a board breaker. You tribute your monster on your opponent's field and you can summon this. It's really strong in my opinion. One of the best board breakers in the game, and there is no answer. The only minus to it is that you have to sacrifice your normal summon. Then we have Vanti Roar. Vanti Roar, also a pretty strong card. Its only minus is that you have to normal summon it, and when you normal summon it, your opponent can't special summon monsters. That's really broken. Then we have Hemsetic, Warrior of Horus. So that's the Horus starter, one of them. That is, and when you discard this card with another card in your hand, you can draw one card. Not only you can draw one card, you can add to your hand one King's Arc, and with the King's Arc you can start the engine. And yeah, pretty strong. Then we have the two Horus boys. Some people run 3, some people run 2, some people run even 4. I would recommend running at least 2 more, including Hemseti. So yeah, 3 different names. It's a strong engine, and I think it's best when played with 3. Not too bricky, not too inconsistent, not too weak. I would not recommend playing on 2. Then we have Dark Ruler No More. Dark Ruler No More, it's a great card. It's a board breaker that basically negates all the opponent's monster effects, and it also can be negated by a monster effect. It can be negated by a monster effect, more so your opponent can't respond with monster effects to this card. That's a better way to phrase it. Then we have Kashtira Duels. That's basically to do a full Kashtira board if there's a necessity. No other reason to play this other than the Kashtira combo. Then we have Pressure Point Raid Sword. So this is a Kashtira starter. It basically adds a Kashtira card to your hand. It can also be used to bait Touch Blossom, so pretty strong. Then we have also the Imperial Tomb. That's like a pseudo King's Arc. That's how I would call it. It basically adds a Horus monster to your hand, so you can use this to add Hemseti and do the full Kashtira and the Horus wine, pretty strong. Then we have Kashtira Bird. This card is great. It can help you banish cards from your opponent's graveyard. Not only that, it can also be useful to normal summon level 7 monsters and to recycle your Kashtira boys, so yeah, strong card. Then we have the King's Arc. So King's Arc, it's a core part of the Horus Engine, you needed to summon your Horus Boys, and you needed to send cards to the graveyard so you can send your Horus Boys to the graveyard as well. Really strong. Then we have Called by the Grave. Called by the Grave is a great card. It helps you deal with hand traps, and it's really a necessity in every deck, in my opinion. Like, you should play in almost every deck Called by the Grave. There is no other way. It's a quick play spell, so you can use it as a trap card as well. Really broken. Then we have Evenly Match. Evenly Match is used, in my opinion, not used. Now it's used. To be a great board breaker, it basically banishes the whole field of your opponent except one card. And it can also be used as a trap card, but almost nobody does that, so yeah, it's a board breaker. Really strong one. It just banishes the whole field. Then we have Skill Drain. Skill Drain is one of the best floodgates in the game. It's what really hurts the stun decks, since it's limited to one. But yeah, you should still play it. It's quite disgusting, in my opinion, and it's a shame that it's limited to one. It's a really strong card. Then we have Power Sing Stone. Power Sing Stone is basically Skill Drain 2.0 with the conditions that have to be met, such as the fact that 2 monster effects needs to be triggered for this to activate. Then we have Tyrant's Tirade. Tyrant's Tirade is a really strong card. I don't know why more people don't turn it, like, generally really broken. And what makes it broken is you tribute 2 monsters and then neither player can trigger monster effects on the field and in the hand. So yeah, you tribute 2 of your Horus monsters, then you bring them back with the King's Arc. GG. Then we have There Can Be Only One. That's more of a floodgate for the current meta. Each player can control only one type of monster. It plays great under the Horus Boys. Not only that, it plays great under the Kashtira Boys. If you have the right predisposition, since if I'm not mistaken, yes, this is a machine card, this is a psychic card, this is a warrior card. Sometimes it can mess up the Kashtira Boys, but still pretty strong. You should play it. Then we have the Dark Current, the Dragon of Annihilation, the extremely edgy card. So this thing is here to pop a point card into banish card from your graveyard, so you can trigger the effect of Kashtira Theosis. No other reason. Then we have the Kashtira Shangri-La. That's part of the Kashtira one. It basically summons a Kashtira monster during the main phase from your deck. Pretty strong. And then we have Kashtira Arise Heart. So Arise Heart is the Kashtira boss monster. It banishes all cards sent from the graveyard to the graveyard, I meant, and it can also banish a card from the field by attaching 3 materials from it. Really strong. Then we have Coach King Giant Trainer. It basically draws 3 cards. It's great if you go on dig for floodgates. You play your Horus Boys, you play this, you dig for some floodgates, you get the floodgate, you win the game. That's why we play it. Then we have number 62 Galaxy Ice Photon Dragon. So the reason why we play this card is so we can beat over towers, but since towers are really not relevant, this thing is not useful at the moment. I would remove it, to be honest. Then we have number 38 Hope Harbinger Dragon Titanic Galaxy. This thing is a spell card negate. There is absolutely no other reason you play this thing except to negate a spell card. It's a strong card. It's a strong card. It can also save one of your monsters from a opponent's attack. So yeah, it has one more use, I guess. Then we have number 68 Xanaphon the Sky Prison. If you have no other plays, that's a great choice, in my opinion. Or if you want to extend your play, that's also a great choice. For example, you have Vanity Roar in your hand, you pop the 3 Horus Boys, you make with the 2 of them Xanaphon, you trigger Xanaphon, you tribute summon Xanaphon with one of the Horus Boys, and you summon the Vanity Roar. Not only he can special summon monsters, now his graveyard is also walked from play. It's a really strong card. It prevents your opponent to summon any monster cards from their graveyard. In some matchups, it's an instant win. Then we have number 90 Galaxy Ice Photon War. The reason why we play this is because we're on Power Sing Stone. So Power Sing Stone gets a counter, and when a monster effect is triggered, and when your opponent triggers a monster effect, you trigger this thing in response, and boom, we're under Skill Drain. It's really impressive. Then we have Hieratic Sky Dragon Overlord of Heliopolis. That's played mainly so we can protect our Vanity Roar from targeting effects, or any other cards that are under danger from targeting effects. That's the reason we play this. It's a good protection. Then we have the Garunix Eternity Hank of the Fire Kings. That's a board breaker. You play this, you break the whole board of your opponent, and then you can pop additionally 1 spell and trap card on the field. It's really strong, in my opinion. Then we have Superstar Rare Typhon Sky Crisis. So this guy here is a great card. It's used to out other cards. If you have no other plays, it's pretty strong. You can do it at the end of your turn after you special summon a bunch and you wanna remove something. It all works as a floodgate. Cards with 3000 or more attack can't trigger their effects, and it can return one card from the hand, from the field to the hand. So yeah, pretty strong. Then we have Dark Antillian Dragon. This thing is only here for a beatstick. And I don't mean beatstick by his effect, I mean beatstick by, let's say you're under skill drain and your opponent has a big boy that's like 3000 attack, you play this and then you can get over it. That's the reason we play this, since it's a level 7 XYZ card and we can do it with the Kashtira boys. Then we have Nightmare Phoenix. Nightmare Phoenix is there to pop a spell and trap card. It's a strong card. If you have space, play it. There's no reason not to play it. Then we have a necessity card, that's Espirital Knight. Espirital Knight basically banishes what card to the field if it's summoned properly. It also has another broken effect. When your opponent activates a card or effect, you can target two face-up monsters on the field, including a monster you control, banish bot until the end phase. A really disgusting effect. Then we play Black Luster Soldier, Soldier of Chaos. The only reason we play this is so we can protect ourselves from infinite impermanence, and the way this protects us is that this card can be targeted if it's summoned properly, and when you can't target it, you can trigger the infinite impermanence to negate one of my floodgates. And let me show you what infinite impermanence does so you can understand why we need to play this. So here's infinite impermanence. It does target one face-up monster your opponent controls, negates its effects until the end of this turn. Then if this card was set before activation ends on the field at resolution, for the rest of this turn all other spell and trap effects in this column are negated. So you basically can prevent a floodgate from having its effect turned on. You turn off the floodgate, which can be devastating in some cases. Like, we don't want our floodgates turned off. That's why we run the Black Luster Soldier. If it can't be targeted, you can trigger this. That's the only reason we play it. Also, it's a hand trap, so almost everybody runs this broken card. It also has the effect, since it's a head trap, if you control all cards, you can activate this card from your hand. That's it for the deck profile. I would not recommend anybody play this. In fact, if you wanna play stand deck in this meta, I am convinced that the best choice is Kashtira. Kashtira. Play pure Kashtira build, experiment with something with it. That's it. Don't play this thing. It's a fun deck. I really enjoyed it, but still, don't play it. Now I'll show some gameplay of the deck. Okay guys, so this is the replay I wanted to show you, and let me start it and play it by just 2 times speed. So I will use this replay to explain to you why there is no a lot of gameplay, let's say, in this video, and the reason there is that you can observe that the average gameplay is playing solitaire, and I generally don't think that's very exciting to watch. It's actually really boring in my opinion to sit there and watch your opponent combo. And the real challenge comes in breaking his board or knowing when to prevent him to play and winning the game. So yeah, this guy just pops off and combos. UBL cards are disgusting. I really hate this archetype. It's one of my least favorites in the game. I don't know what Konami was smoking when he decided to create this abomination. I have no other words to describe it. To be honest, as we can see, he sets up a disgusting board. And it's gonna be getting worse and worse. For now he has 3 monster negates. And now he's gonna build an Omni Negate by summoning Vordras. Oh, top, we have a Chainsaw of Rage that, yeah, here's Vordras and the Chainsaw of Rage that can link summon during my turn with one of my monsters. So, yeah, another disgusting card. So what we do, we go Lava Golem, we mess up his Monster Negate and his Omni Negate. He plays Maxi, we go evenly match, we wipe up his whole board. What we do, we play Kashtira Unicorn, we add the Kashtira board for the grind game. Since we have King's Arc, we do King's Arc, we send one card from the hand, summon Imseti, set Kashtira board, and turn. Here I wanted to summon my Vanity Ruler and make sure it's game over since he can't special summon any monsters, but unfortunately I realized I can't normal summon since I used Lava Golem. So yeah, there's that. So he's gonna start to try to combo, but this card is pretty strong in some case, and I banished 3 cards from his graveyard. This really hurts him. Here I banish 1 card from his extra deck. He keeps on trying to escape his fate, but it's not working well. For now he's gonna do SP. SP is gonna banish my King's Arc, I'm gonna trigger him Seti effect, he's gonna eat away the Unicorn, and yeah, I just remove the UBL monster, and let's see what we do this turn. We go battle phase, he doesn't want Unicorn to trigger, so he negates his effect, then I go for a direct attack, Then I summon Vanthrower, and he can't special summon, and now it's game over. Yep, GG. So yeah, that's how the gameplay of this deck should look if you play it properly. You should just forget your opponent and break his board. These are only a few of the strategies you can commit to. There are plenty of others, and nothing stops you from inventing something new and unique of your own. So what exactly makes Yu-Gi-Oh! Such a frustrating game to play? As we saw, there are plenty of strategies and decks to choose from. It should be fun to go and experiment with them, right? Well, for starters, the game can be pretty frustrating at times since there is an RNG element to it. It isn't uncommon to draw no starters for your combo and end up having to pass a turn and lose the game.
Brother, what's that? What's that, brother?
Also, it is pretty important to be able to choose whether to go first or second, as that allows you to set up your board full of negates and interruptions, so you can negate your opponent's card effects. Needless to say, this is also a mechanic that is based on luck. The game creators resolve this issue of ability to choose by introducing a coin toss mechanic, so the player who wins the coin toss chooses to go first or second. As I said earlier, most decks aim to go first so they can do their combo and achieve a strong board, but some decks like Tempa and Sky Striker prefer going second and trying to break the opponent's board so they can win the game in a single turn. As there is a pretty big advantage in going first and setting up an unbeatable board, Konami decided to introduce hand traps, which are designed to prevent your opponent to play the game by negating his monster effects on turn 1. That way you can have a chance of winning the game when you're going second. The frustrating thing about hand traps is that it often feels like your opponent has the exact card that is needed to stop you from doing your combo. The most popular hand traps currently are Ash Blossom and Joy Spring that prevent your opponent to either add a card from the deck to the hand, special summon from the deck, send a card from the deck to the graveyard. Infinite Impermanence, which is also a trap card, can be played from your hand if you control no other cards and negates the effects of a monster for a single turn. The problem with such mechanics as hand traps is that they don't fix the problem that the game has with building an unbreakable board, and just disguises the problem by giving the players hope he will draw some of those cards and have a chance of winning when going second. There is also the fundamental problem of knowing where to use each hand trap against each deck, as there are many decks in the game. This creates a chore to the player to do his homework before even playing the game, so that he has a competitive chance against the enemy, and sometimes people just play rogue decks that see little play and they don't know where to hand trap them, but probably the most disgusting hand trap ever made, a New York card as well, with Maxi. It's a continuous hand trap that has the effect of during either player's turn, you can send this card from your hand to the graveyard. This turn, each time your opponent special summons a monster, immediately draw one card. If the enemy player has no response to this card in the form of another hand trap like Ash Blossom and Joa Spring, unless he plays a deck that doesn't special summon like Wonder is, it will result in either the Maxi player accumulating a giant advantage of many cards and winning the duel because of that, or the Maxi victim will end up on a weak board and probably lose the game. For some reason, Maxi is still a legal card. Great game. It is not uncommon for the game to be degraded to a hand trap minigame. The alternative of hand traps are board breakers. Most people don't play them as there is a saying that goes, prevention is better than the cure. Board breakers can be good, but they're a bit unreliable and some of them can be negated. Evenly matched, a card that banishes most of your opponent's fields. Used to win you the game against Duel and Branded, but with the recent support they receive that is not the case anymore. Also, some board breakers only half solve the problem, like Dark Ruler No More, that negates the effects of all opponent monsters and can be negated by a monster effect, as your opponent still has trap cards and interactions outside the monster field zone. Also, Dark Ruler No More can be negated by spell and trap cards. The best type of board breakers are probably the ones that always work, but they require a hefty price to be paid, that many decks can't. For example, Lava Golem is a card that has no response as you tribute 2 of your opponent's monsters to summon, but the price of that comes at the cost of your normal summon. Or Sphere Mold of Rada does the same but tributes 3 monsters. Most decks require their normal summon to operate, players stay away from board breakers. I myself still run them because my deck can operate without any normal summons, but they sometimes fail to win me the game. Also, players' turns tend to take pretty long, especially if you have no hand traps, and trust me, it is not fun to watch your opponent combo for 10 minutes only to realize you can't break his board. All these long combos can be equally frustrating to the one doing it, as messing up one step of it can result in you losing the game. So yes, sometimes Yu-Gi-Oh just becomes playing solitaire. Another aspect many players hate are floodgates. These are cards that prevent your opponent play the game. As I mentioned earlier, my favorite playstyle, as they allow you to skip the part of the game that requires to play solitaire. What makes them frustrating is that unless you have the out, you instantly lose the game to them. Another small inconvenience is that unlike the physical game, the simulator is forced to ask you if you want to activate a card effect, which can get pretty irritating. Now, you can disable that with the toggle button, but it sometimes feels like you're playing a mini game with it, trying to react on time for the enemy effect by turning it on. Overall, Yu-Gi-Oh can be a fun and exciting game that can allow you to outsmart your opponent with the resources that the deck gives you, but it can be pretty frustrating as often the game doesn't feel like you lost due to your own mistake, but the fact that your opponent received the correct cards and you didn't. So yes, in conclusion, subscribe, like the video, play Master Duel, it's a fun game. You can also check out 2 of my previous videos. And if I'm not in the Shadow Realm, I'll see you around next time, guys. Bye for now. Hey guys, this is more of a director's cut. I just wanted to show you what happens when you play too much Master Duel. Just to warn you that it's not for the people with, how do you say it in English? Let's say anger issues. Yeah, anger issues. If you have anger issues, I don't recommend playing Master Duel. So this is what happened. Let's say I raged a little bit, swamped my earphones in the wall, and I managed to snipe this place in between the wooden part of the bed and the window. So that was quite unlucky, but hey, sometimes such things happen, and it is what it is. So yeah, that's it. Don't rage at Master Duel, guys. It's not good for your surroundings. Also, this video took way too freaking long. I will try to upload more frequently. Like, this video just came out very long. It's like equal to 5 videos. I think it will be 50 minutes. It's absurd how long it became. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed it. Like, it took a lot of effort to make.